Procrastination isn't about laziness. It isn't about discipline. It isn't about time management. It's about protection. You're not avoiding the work. You're avoiding what the work might reveal. And that is fear. But not dramatic fear, not panic, not visible anxiety, but it's fear wearing logic. It's fear wearing productivity. It's fear wearing, I just need a little more time. And fear is subtle. It doesn't shout. It whispers. I'll start tomorrow. I just need some more clarity. I need to get better before I begin. I'm almost ready. Next week, I'll be ready. This is part 3 in our procrastination series. And today, I want you to listen closely because most procrastination doesn't sound irresponsible. It sounds reasonable. And that's why it's been winning. What are you really afraid of? If you finished the project, if you launched the thing, if you applied, if you spoke up or stepped forward, what are you afraid of? What might it reveal? That you're not as talented as you hoped? Or maybe that you actually are capable and now you're going to have to rise to the occasion? That people will see you clearly, that you will be judged, that you'll succeed and oh no, once I succeed, then I have to maintain it. Most people think they're afraid of failure, but in reality, they're afraid of identity disruption because success always requires becoming someone new. And becoming someone new means letting the old version of you die. That's just straight up uncomfortable. So the brain steps in. Careful. Last time that hurt. Let's not risk that again. And you label it as procrastination, but it's protection. And here's what's happening underneath the surface. At some point in your life, you formed a belief, not just a thought, a belief. And beliefs are different. Thoughts pass through while beliefs settle in. Beliefs actually become a contract between who you were and who you've decided that you were allowed to be. Maybe the contract you've written said, I'm not the bold one. I'm not the academic one. I'm not the creative one. I'm not the leader. I'm not the reliable one. Not really the visionary. I can walk things out, but I'm not the visionary. I'm the safe one. I don't take the risk. And you didn't write it consciously, but you absorbed it. And the problem is your brain has been honoring that ever since. In fact, your brain would rather protect a familiar identity than pursue unfamiliar growth. And out of your identity flows everything else. So if your identity says that you're inconsistent, you'll find ways to prove it. If your identity says that you always quit, you'll subtly set up quitting conditions. If your identity says that you're not ready for that level, you'll stall until the opportunity passes. Not because you're incapable, because you're consistent. And the brain values consistency more than potential. This is why motivation fails. You can listen to podcasts, you could read books, you could set goals. But if your internal story says this isn't who we are, your behavior will quietly rebel, while motivation pushes, identity governs. So is it possible that you don't need more inspiration, rather you need an internal ruling? Reframing is a skill. Let's be clear, it's not lying to yourself. It's not pretending fear doesn't exist. It's not blind optimism. Reframing is reclassification. It's choosing a stronger interpretation of the same evidence. Example, your old interpretation says, I failed, that means I'm not cut out for this. The reframe says, I failed, that means I'm inexperienced. And that's okay because incapable is permanent, but inexperienced is temporary. The old interpretation says you're nervous, so that must mean that you're not ready. The reframe says nervous and excited are the same trigger in my body. I'm not nervous. This energy is excitement. The old interpretation says I've never done this before. The reframe says that's the definition of growth. I'm gonna grow today. The old interpretation says I'm behind. But the reframe says I'm walking according to the divine timing. Reframing doesn't deny reality. It upgrades the lens, and the lens determines the behavior. And here's where it becomes real. Behavior follows belief. Belief follows identity. So if you identify as the person who struggles with consistency, your brain will unconsciously align your actions with that identity. If you identify as someone who starts scared but goes anyway, your behavior shifts. And it's not because you forced it, but because it matches who you believe that you are. Identity is the root system. Goals are the branches. And you can trim the branches all day. But if the root stays the same, the tree doesn't change. So I think it's a good time to ask you, who do you believe that you are when no one's watching? Because that version decides everything. So how do we begin to move from awareness to authority? Step one, write the old story. Not the polished one, the real one. Lift up the hood and see what's going on. Maybe for you, it's you're afraid that you're not good enough. Maybe you're afraid people won't take you seriously. Maybe you're afraid success will expose you. You'll prove your critics right, or you'll end up disappointing yourself. Be specific, because vague fear survives, but specific identified fear can be dismantled. Step two is to trace it. When did this story begin? What moment did I attach this meaning to? Was I a child? Was I a teenager? Maybe it was early in my career. And what emotional state was I in when I formed this belief? And remember that emotions make conclusions feel permanent. They're not. Step three, challenge the evidence. Is this universally true? Or is this one generalized event? Have I ever contradicted this belief through my actions? Have I collected any adult data? Or am I still living off the childhood interpretation? Step four, write the new story. Not fantasy, not hype, authority. Instead of you're not leadership material, write leadership is a skill that I am building. Instead of you're inconsistent, write I'm becoming a person who finishes. Instead of you always hesitate, write I move before I feel ready. Identity shifts in language first, then behavior follows. And step five, act immediately. Maybe it's a small action, but make it immediate, because identity begins to solidify through evidence. You don't become confident and then act, you act and then become confident. There is a man who grew up in a house with a faulty smoke alarm. It was old, oversensitive, wired wrong. Every time someone made toast or a bagel, that sucker screamed. Steam rises from the shower, screams. Oven preheated, screams. It wasn't detecting danger, it was detecting heat. But to a child in that house, the alarm meant one thing. Something is wrong, something is burning, something bad is about to happen. So what did they start doing? They stopped cooking. They opened the windows before they took a shower. They avoided using the oven altogether. They adjusted their behavior around the alarm. So we're tired of this thing screaming at us every second that we're in the house. Years passed, the child grew up and moved out, got their own place. New kitchen, new oven, new life. But the first time they cooked something ambitious, turned the heat up and watched the flames rise, their chest began to tighten. Their body braced. They instinctively reached for a chair to stand on, to silence an alarm that wasn't there. The wiring wasn't in the ceiling anymore. It was in them. See, nothing was on fire. The heat wasn't danger. But their nervous system still associated heat with harm. So they avoided turning up the flame. They kept meals simple. They kept goals small, kept the temperature low. Not because they couldn't cook, but because something inside an old alarm still believed heat meant harm. That's what your fear is. It's not a prophecy. It's old wiring. It's a smoke detector that learned the wrong lesson. And every time your life starts to heat up, every time you try something bigger and bolder, more aligned with who you are, it whispers, careful, this feels just like last time. Turn it down, stay small. But here's the truth, that there's no smoke. You don't silence the flame. You replace the wiring. You don't stop cooking, you recalibrate the alarm, because heat is required to transform ingredients. Nothing grows in a cold room. Nothing expands at a low temperature. And the life you keep postponing is on the other side of turning the dial up. So next time your chest tightens, the next time your mind says, wait, the next time fear sounds reasonable, pause and ask yourself, is something burning or am I just growing? Because one side requires retreat while the other side requires courage. If you enjoyed that video, go on and tell me something in the comments. And always remember that growth is a journey. It's not a destination. I'm in it with you. And I'll see you on the next one.